Well, I'm honored to introduce our first session today, Scaling AI Inside Jasper's Growth and Insights. So Brian Tsao, the Chief Product Officer of Jasper, will share an inside look at growing teams and the AI insights that every business owner should know. So welcome, Brian.
Hey, everyone. Awesome. Can you all hear me? All right, all good. All right, let's do this. I'm gonna already changing the order of my slides. Great way to start the keynote. Figured I'd start with the intro. Hey everyone, my name is Brian. I am the Chief Product Officer at Jasper, which is a generative AI company to help marketers. Just a little bit about my background. I'm not a founder myself. I know a lot of you all are, but I have actually worked very closely with founders through my career. I started my career probably like 15, 20 years ago at a very small seed stage company at Kabam, where I was the 16th employee, and we still worked in a one-room office above a dim sum restaurant in downtown Mountain View. So yeah, I was hired by one of the co-founders there. You know, we pivoted the company a couple times. When I joined, we actually made Facebook apps back when that was a thing on the Facebook platform. And yeah, we did a couple pivots and eventually became a mobile gaming company where we actually grew from 0 to about $400 million in revenue over about 4 years. So there for about 6 years, pretty incredible journey. Got to work with a couple of the most incredible founders that I've had a chance to. After that, I was actually hired by a founder at Mattermark, where I joined another seed stage startup at, I think I was like the 20th person there. First person to implement, first PM, right? Like first person to implement any bug tracking, all that sort of thing. But it was really cool to be part of that journey as well. Helping to raise our Series A, our Series B, growing that business a little bit. But yeah, ultimately that one did not work out. But as many of you founders know, it's really hard to build a really big business. From there, I actually moved to New York. I joined a company called Namely, which made HR payroll benefits software for mid-market companies. Reported to the founder, the CEO there, a guy named Matt Straz, who's also very much around sort of the New York tech scene. Yeah, got to see that company grow from about Series C through Series E, so a little bit farther down the journey. A journey place maybe some of you all will see sometime soon, hopefully. And then, yeah, from there I joined Dropbox, where I ran the growth and data organizations there, and I got to sit on the executive team of Dropbox and work very closely with Dropbox's founder and CEO, Drew Houston. So, yeah, like I said, I know a lot of you are founders, and I have a huge admiration and respect for what you all do. Work very closely with them, closely enough to know that I could not do any of those things, but I really enjoy working with them and helping to materialize a lot of their visions. So yeah, anyway, that's a little bit about me. And yeah, today we're gonna I'm gonna tell some stories about working on AI at Jasper, how we're applying those stories to our own sort of product vision. Yeah, try to land that a little bit on where we see the overall AI landscape evolving to over the next few years. All right, let's get into it. So, okay, so a little bit about Jasper, right? Jasper was founded in 2021. It was actually founded by 3 marketers. Since then, we've actually gotten over 100,000 customers onto the platform over the past 3 or so years. Jasper was actually founded before ChatGPT sort of blew up, so it's interesting to see sort of the transition from, oh my God, it's so magical. I can type a few words into this chat box and get a whole blog post out of it, kind of to where we are today. I would say the most interesting thing, though, is watching how our customers have been using generative AI and how that's evolved from a pre-ChatGPT era to a post-ChatGPT era. And yeah, I think there's a lot of interesting learnings. So yeah, kind of the way that we at Jasper think about things is right now in 2024, we're kind of in year 2 post-ChatGPT, right? Which was a really big change in the ecosystem. Since then, there's not just ChatGPT, but there's all sorts of generative AI tools, right? There's Perplexity, many others, and maybe just a quick show of hands. How many of you use ChatGPT or any generative AI? Okay, so yeah, a lot of people, right? Not surprising. I actually think that there are a lot of parallels with the way that LLMs and generative AI technology is developing. You know, and we really think that chat is just the beginning of that. And I think to tell that story, if you'll indulge me a little bit on a walk down memory lane. So, quick show of hands, who knows what this is or like recognizes this? It's a little like ancient tech history. Okay, I'm not totally alone. At around age 40. So this is the slogan that Salesforce had when they were first founded in the very late 1990s and early 2000s, and their slogan was "No software." This might be kind of crazy to think about today, but at the time, Salesforce was founded by Mark Benioff, who was at Oracle, which was actually the dominant sort of tech company at the time. So if you take yourself back to those days, right, relational databases were invented in the 1970s, right? And in 1977, Larry Ellison, who is now known as the America's Cup guy, right? Spying Paramount and things like that. But he founded this company called Oracle, right? And if you take yourself back to the 90s, it's actually kind of crazy to think about, but like databases were totally new technology. Right? And as a result, you used a database for pretty much everything, right? In the 90s, Oracle's like big product lines were HR systems, right? Like back in the day, people would buy Oracle, hire a bunch of like forward deployed sales engineers and build out their whole HR system on top of an Oracle database, right? Like back in the 90s, people also used Oracle for a database of all their customers. Right? We now know that as like CRM, right? But that was actually something that Salesforce really sort of pioneered, right? And then, as sort of technology evolved, by the time you get into the 2000s, right, you have sort of Salesforce, which has built this like really nice application layer on top of the database with all of the stuff that, we all use today, right? And, you have companies like Workday, right, who have evolved sort of the HCM space, on top of a database with a lot of like business logic in the application layer, right? So I think the parallels, hopefully, to LLMs is, pretty clear, right? I view very much the underlying LLM technology as very similar to a database, right? It's a new capability, a new technology that can do a lot of stuff, right? And then similar to Oracle databases, I view ChatGPT and other sort of like chatbots as a very generalized way to use that technology, right? And, even working at Jasper, right, talking to our customers now, or potential customers, I know that there are many people using ChatGPT, Microsoft Copilot, other products like that to generate marketing content, right? It's pretty natural. If you're a founder, you're working on a very small marketing team, maybe your boss is telling you got to write a blog post like every 3 days, people are going to ChatGPT and using that to generate content for their business, right? Maybe using that to write an email or help to launch a product or anything like that, right? But, a lot of people are also using ChatGPT to plan their vacations, or, I use ChatGPT to summarize TV shows that I don't want to watch, but I'm curious about, So, I view that as very similar to databases, right? Where like, yeah, right now you kind of just use ChatGPT for everything, right? But if you think about how technology evolves, right? Are we in the future forever going to be use the same tool to plan vacations and generate marketing content, or any other application that you might be using an LM for? I think no. I mean, I at least hope the answer is no, because Jasper, where I currently work and where I've worked for the past year, we really believe that there is going to be a very robust application layer, a very robust experience on top of LLMs that will be purpose-built for marketers, right? And that's going to make the experience a lot better, than just sort of typing things into, a chat window and, getting stuff back, right? And, but it's not just about marketing, right? I think you're going to see that across a number of different applications. And, even for people building and scaling companies, right? I think you're going to start to see a lot more tools get more mature and more sophisticated. Oops. But what does that mean for us, right? How are we really applying that insight, right? So, we really think that, as we develop more sophisticated, more mature AI tools, right, as time passes, we're going to have a lot more specific tools for marketing in every single function in the company, right? And what are the differences, right? Why would you not use ChatGPT when that thing costs $20 a month and is kind of everywhere, everybody knows how to use it, right? So there are a few things that are very unique and specific about marketing, right? One of the big ones that I've really come to appreciate is that marketing operates at an extremely high scale, right? Like if you have an idea for a marketing campaign, right? Like let's say you are a big shoe company, right? Maybe you want to do both an email and have a landing page and have a social media post, right? So immediately you're like, okay, I need like 3 different asset types, right? Then maybe on top of that, maybe you do a little A/B testing, right? A little split testing, test the copy, test the calls to action. You want to see what converts the best. So now you have 9, right? If you're a global company, maybe you want it in 5 languages to hit your top markets, right? Then on top of that, maybe you do a little personalization based on segment, right? You have a different, different marketing voice for runners, versus people buying apparel, versus people training for a marathon, versus what have you, right? And then even on top of that, maybe you don't just have one social media platform, but you need to post on, your Facebook and your Twitter and your Instagram and all these things, right? So it's kind of crazy to think about, but a single campaign can spawn over 1,000 assets, right? And if you think about it, are you going to use ChatGPT to generate all these variations and then copy and paste 1,000 assets out of a chat box into all your different systems, right? The other thing that was super interesting for me to learn from working with our customers more deeply is that marketing is a very sort of like multi-phase kind of like situation, right? It's not just, hey, I had an idea and then I immediately wrote an email and then wrote a tweet and hit send, right? Especially at larger businesses, right? Like there's a very iterative process where first you come up with an idea and then you develop a messaging brief and then you use the messaging brief to develop a bill of materials, and then that bill of materials has like 10 things on it, and then you use the bill of materials, and then you go down that list, right, and start generating like all your different campaigns. And I think the last big pillar, right, that we've identified is like the 3 most important things that differentiate what marketers need from a more general tool versus a more general tool is that marketing really requires brand consistency, right? If we think again about like a shoe company, right? If people are paying $100, $200 or even more for a pair of sneakers, they're not just buying the shoe, right? They're really buying into the brand, right? And if what you're selling is the brand, and that brand manifests through your marketing content across all your social media channels, across your own website, across any third-party retailers that you may sell your shoes on, right? It's really important that that brand comes through in all of these different assets and is consistent, right? So you put that together, right? And we really view the next evolution of Gen AI, it's going from, hey, we have this cool chat tool, everybody's playing with it, everybody feels like the technology is really interesting, and it's pretty magical to be able to, again, type some words in and get any particular piece of content out of it. But we think that the technology can go much farther, right? If you build this like really purpose-built experience for marketers, they can actually use that to drive the real goals, the real outcomes that they're accountable for, right? It's not just a cool party trick or something that saves you a little bit of time, but it's something that actually helps you drive more leads, right? Helps you drive more pipeline, helps you, if you're a field marketer, like the fine people who put this event on, right? It helps you get more people to come to your event, or it makes your email campaigns coming out of the event actually drive more results. So one of the examples of that, right? And I'm going to walk through a few. So we actually use Jasper at Jasper, like not surprisingly, and this is one of the most eye-opening like applications. So when I joined Jasper, we were doing lifecycle emails, right? Like that's something probably many of you to grow your businesses, right? We would send on a semi-regular basis like updates about what Jasper was doing, any new product releases, new partnerships, when we acquired companies, things like that, right? And like many businesses, every week we have new leads coming in, right? We run marketing events, we run dinners, we run campaigns, and people sort of sign up, right? And we try to tell them a little bit about Jasper. right? And that was going pretty well, right? Like we had this great lifecycle. We have this great lifecycle marketer from Atlassian, who really knows what he's doing. And again, I imagine many of you are doing similar things to grow your businesses, right? A few months ago, we actually decided that we would try to integrate Jasper into this program, right? So we actually even ran a split test on this where we would take 1,000 leads every single week that were qualified, right? And then we would use Jasper's API to go to their domains, right? Go to their website, and we can scrape the words off of their homepage, right? So if you're at Bubble, bubble.com or bubble.io, right? We'd go there and just use the words on there to generate a personalized email about Bubble and about how Jasper could help a company like Bubble, right? We would also use that set of words to generate a landing page that's also personalized that goes with the email, right? And then instead of running our typical lifecycle campaigns where maybe you do a few segments, right, and you're doing some mail merges to get their name and that sort of thing, right? We suddenly had totally personalized and customized emails for 1,000 people at a time every single week, right? What's crazy is the first couple weeks when we did a split test on this, we actually got more than 15 times the number of clicks in the personalized split, right? That's real results, right? That is pipeline. Just like any other growing company, our marketing team has needs to generate more leads in pipeline every quarter, right? Every month. And instead of just saying hey, let's hire more people, right? Let's spend more money on programs, right? If you can get more results by better personalization just by using a single tool, hey, that's really compelling, right? And then what I love about this example is that it's not just a one-off thing that you just do every once in a while where it's oh, my boss asked me to write a blog post, and now I'm going to go to ChatGPT, or now I'm going to go to Jasper and write a blog post. This is a program, right? We do this every single week now with every single lead that comes through our pipeline and gets qualified, right? And I think this really shows also that what I find very transformative about this example in terms of how you might grow a business, right, how businesses might grow, is that even if we had 10 times as much money as we do, or 100 times the budget, there is no way that we could personalize 1,000 emails a week, right? You cannot hire enough marketers just sit there and friggin' type out, do the research on every person's website, type out some personalized email, type out a personalized, it's impossible. Right? The step function change in both what you can do and achieve and the results that you can get with Gen AI for the cost of less than one person's salary, right? I think that is what's going to be really transformative about Gen AI, where it's not just this cool chatbot, but this thing that's really driving your results. So that's one example, but here's kind of our overarching framework for this, right? Kind of mapping to some of the differences we really identified as the most relevant ones for what's different about marketing specifically. We have 3 pillars of our product vision, right? We want to make sure that when you use Jasper, it is embedded in how you work, right? The way that every company does product launches, or puts products on their website, or writes content is very different, right? And we want to map to that process. We want to be able to make sure to help you maintain your brand at scale, right? So brand creative automation. And the last thing is that's coming up a lot with our customers is we want to be a platform that is worthy of trust, right? I think there is a lot of fear and uncertainty about, hey, if I use OpenAI, are they training their models on the data that we're giving them? All right, is Sam Altman going to be able to go in and see what my company is doing, right? So if you go one click deeper into this, right, what does it mean to be embedded in the flow of work? So we're really leaning hard into building workflows that integrate into how people are actually running their marketing campaigns, right? So I've got 2 stories on this one. One of our customers is a very big furniture retailer, e-com retailer, right? They have, crazily enough, 50,000 couches on their website, which is kind of bonkers. One of the biggest bottlenecks for this business is literally getting their products on their website. And the thing that takes the longest, at least for the marketing department there, is to write the product descriptions. right? If you imagine just the amount of people it would take to write product descriptions for 50,000 couches and then however many chairs and tables and rugs and lights and lamps and products that they sell on their website, that's actually crazy, right? So the way that this company uses Jasper is that we were able to tailor a few what we're about to rename apps, but what we previously called workflows, that could reach into their system, pull the relevant information about those SKUs, and then start out with at least like a first draft, right? A pretty good draft of like what that product description would be. They evaluated us as a POC, and what they found was that by using Jasper to help automate a lot of the process of creating product descriptions, they were able to speed up the production of these descriptions by 30%, right? But it's not just that, they're writing it 30% faster or, their life is 30% easier. That's actually the amount of time it sped up the entire process of like launching a new couch or a new lamp onto their website. And if you think about their business, if your business is retailing furniture on your website, the more products you get on your website, the more money you make, right? It's a very like straightforward equation. And once they got to that outcome, right, they're like, yeah, sign me up, right? What would you pay to accelerate your pace of product delivery to your customers by 30%, right? The second big use case that where we've identified a really big pattern is with one of our newer really large customers, say a large consumer electronics company, right? So they are in the process of using Jasper to launch a new line of products for 2024, right? Refreshing sort of one of their product lines annually. And that's where when we went in to do the implementation, do the discovery with our customer success team, right? We found that they had this incredibly like iterative process that used to take them like 4 weeks. Right, they would start out with this big, like 50-page like PDF that has all of the sort of like technical specs, right? The product requirements doc, right, for this line of products, right? And they needed to translate that into so many like materials, right? But with Jasper, and we actually made a training video out of this, so it was like pretty incredible to like watch this. They're able to take that doc, upload it into Jasper, and then upload a second doc that was just an example of what their messaging brief would look like, right? A previous messaging brief for a different campaign. Combine those two things, and in basically like 3 or 4 minutes, you're able to use Jasper to create a totally new messaging brief that condenses this 50-page like list of technical specs of all of their different like versions of this product, right, into a messaging brief. Right? But what was really cool was then you can immediately take that and plug that into the next step, right? They know that for launches, they have a bill of materials that has like, a huge big spreadsheet of like stuff they need to make, right? Then they're able to immediately take that, translate that down into, okay, let me get started. I need a press release. I need a blog article. I need a LinkedIn article. I need all of these different things. And end to end, getting to that like first draft, which is already like a lot of the way there, only took about 20 minutes, right? And even with a little bit of review, people, doing some slight edits and doing the publishing step, right? This is something that has totally transformed the way like this very large multinational like consumer electronics firm is launching products that I'm sure many of you use at home or on your desk. So really thinking through like with workflows, whether you are retailing furniture on an e-com site or launching a big multinational campaign for a big line of products, right? How does that process actually work, right? And how can the software support you through every step of that process and make it seamless versus like, oh, I'm going to ChatGPT, I'm typing in a prompt. I hope I got the prompt right. I'm going to copy and paste like something out, right? Like on these 50,000 couches, I'm like copying and pasting the description out of every single one. Brand and creative automation. So the second pillar of this, right? I've talked a little bit about like why customers value the brand aspects of this so much, right? Many of you are probably creating brands for your businesses that you really want to invest in. I think the area that I find very interesting more as almost a developer or a software person in terms of what we're learning here, right, is that not only, okay, great, it's really important, how do we actually like help people do this, right? I think in the first sort of like, chatbot, ChatGPT era of like using LLMs, The way you might do this is you would just tell ChatGPT, like, hey, make the post sound like this, right? Make it sound warm, clear, and informative, give it a bunch of instructions, and then just hope that it's gonna like, make something that sounds like that. And to be honest, it was pretty magical when it launched, right? It does a pretty good job of following your instructions and making you a piece of content that follows your instructions, right? But one of the things we've actually learned, and the types of things we're learning as we watch our 100,000 customers do this all the time. This is how the V1 of Jasper worked as well, right? We're also learning things about like best practices in prompting, right? And just one really quick example of that is that we've learned giving it an example to follow is a lot better and more effective at getting it to create a piece of content that sounds like you than just telling it what it should sound like and hoping that it interprets it correctly, right? So understanding that, we actually revamped our brand voice system to incorporate that, right? Like now, when you give it a set of instructions, or this is like coming very, very soon, like I was playing with it literally yesterday. Very soon, the way that it will work is when you give it a bunch of instructions, it'll generate 4 excerpts that are examples of how that voice might sound. And it'll ask you to choose one that you feel like best represents your voice. And then it will automatically inject that sort of into the prompt behind the scenes, right? And instead of telling the LLM like, hey, make stuff sound like, make the voice sound warm and clear and informative, it'll say, make the output sound like this excerpt. We did a ton of split testing on this in the last 3 months, and we found probably like a 20 or 30% increase in what we call our positive feedback rate, in the rate of people giving us a positive response on the outputs, right? So one of the fun things about working, in Gen AI and then being able to be very focused on marketing, right, a very narrow domain versus building a generalist tool, is that we can invest a lot of time in developing best practices on how to get marketing content out, right? Not just generic words, but like marketing content that's on brand. We can bake those best practices into our software, so you don't need to know any of that, right? Like if you just use Jasper, you can just, or once we release this, in the next few weeks, you can just go to Jasper, follow the instructions, and it's gonna help you get better results that sound different, right? That make you sound different than your competitors. The other thing that's kind of fun for maybe more of the developers is we're also innovating a lot on the UI paradigms for this, right? Like there's a lot of complexity under the hood with LLMs. What is the best way? What is the best way to communicate that to users, right? And for those of you who love building things, right? Like maybe you remember in the early days of like iPhone versus Android, right? There is this very big debate over like iPhone does like skeuomorphism, right? They use a lot of metaphors. They simplify a lot of things. It looks like a knob, when you change the volume, even though there's no knob in your iPhone, right? So we're playing with like, hey, how much do we use a slider, right? And say like, hey, do you want the tone to be more or less warm, right? Versus how much do we expose exactly what's going on under the hood? So, I think those are also the types of things that, again, as we focus really narrowly on marketing as a use case and really try to build the best marketing generative AI product, we're going to be able to bake in and we're going to be able to learn. And then I think the last thing is enterprise trust, right? That's the foundation of everything, right? You gotta trust the tools that you're using. So one example of this, right? One thing we've learned that is really important to our customers when they're thinking about using Gen AI for marketing, right? When we talk to them, they're telling us things like, hey, for us to effectively generate content, we gotta upload everything into this thing, right? We gotta upload like all of our customer lists, right? We gotta upload our product requirement stocks for our upcoming next generation products, right? We gotta a lot of times, something that helps a lot is uploading what your goals are, right? Like these are all things that, while the space is very nascent, like people have a lot of trepidation about where they put that, right? And is that data going to be used to train the LLM, right? Is there some leakage? Will this in some way make it possible for people not in my company to learn about our intentions or what we're doing? All right, so one of the other things that we've developed is the ability to securely host Jasper basically on your own, on a private instance in the cloud, right? So while we use open source LLM models, under the hood to do a lot of the content generation, you can host a private instance of that so that when you upload this context to generate your marketing content, it's not going to go to Sam Altman or ChatGPT, or it's not going to go to Google, or any of these other LLM companies. So yeah, I think if you really put all of that together, right? I think with Jasper, our vision is that using Jasper to do marketing is going to really transform what marketing looks like, right? It's going to transform the results that you're able to get in the same way that CRMs transformed the way people were able to sell, right? Or even having modern HR tools like a Workday or a Rippling or a Gusto or what have you is way better than using Oracle database or just using paper, right? Keeping employee records in files. And yeah, if you really play that out, right, across the whole industry, across all use cases, I think you're going to see that happen across a number of different domains, right? Jasper is super focused on marketing, but obviously within a company there are many other functions, right? Whether that's sales, whether that's engineering, whether that's HR, and then there's even on top of that there are vertical applications, right? If you go back to the Oracle to Salesforce example, even after Salesforce came out, there are still Viva systems, right? There's a CRM built on top of Salesforce just for pharma companies, right? So I think you're going to see that really transform the way that companies operate, right? And while today Jasper is really focused on enterprises and helping them with their specific problems, right? Baking in best practices about marketing and LLMs into our product experience to help enterprise marketers really hit their goals. I actually think we'll see the biggest transformation in companies that are founded today, right? Companies that grow up in an environment where all these tools exist are not going to build and scale the same way that companies, even in the SaaS era, were built, right? In a SaaS era, when you scale a company, it's already a lot more lean, right? Than companies before that, right? Now we have AWS, we have all these tools, a relatively small number of people, are able to build a really big business. I actually think in the LLM era, once a lot of these more either vertical specific or function specific tools get really mature, it's going to be another step function change in how efficiently you can grow a company, right? I think we're going to see a single person company be able to become $1 billion company, right? Because once you have all these tools, as they get more and more sophisticated, smarter and smarter, they become more like agents, right? I honestly think that at some point, somebody's going to found a company in the next, not in the far future, right? In the next year or two, that maybe grows up without a standalone marketing department at all, right? You built some company and you just use Jasper to do your marketing, and you use Harvey as your legal department. You don't need a general counsel. You don't need all these different these different things, right? So anyway, thank you for listening. That's my talk, and yeah, good luck building all your companies.